the St. Paul City Council.
Call the HRA to order. Roll call.
Brenmoen, Busuri, Jalali Nelson, Nager, Prince, Tao, Chair Tolbert, 7 present, no one absent. Resolution 19-2066, approving an amendment to the HRA budget, administratively amending the budget set forth in the TIF plan for the Forsyth Redevelopment Tax Increment Financing District, authorizing interfund loans, declaring official intent to reimburse expenditures from the proceeds of tax-exempt bonds, and authorizing execution of a redevelopment agreement and related documents.
Great. And this is the first item as we will take up with the HRA. And is there any discussion? Commissioner Nelson?
We're just commenting now on the testimony we just heard. I just wanted to thank people for sitting through what felt like a super meeting of all the issues ever in our city to stay and talk about this enormous project. So just thank you. I know that you must be exhausted. I just want to share my support tonight for the proposal. There's some aspects about just what we're going to do that I think are tremendously exciting. There was a lot of talk throughout the very arduous public process about making sure there's adequate public space and parkland and green space, and there's more parkland on the proposal now than is actually required. I think it's like 9% required, and we're at 11%. The affordability and housing goals, I mean, the fact that 10% of the 20% is going to be at 30% AMI is pretty astounding. I don't think that's happening actually anywhere else in our city right now that I can think of. I would love to be wrong because I'd love there to be even more 30% AMI happening around our city, but it's just really significant. And I want to really lift up the comments around sustainability that were brought forward. I do think it's great that we're going to have all solar and renewable energy. I also would really love to encourage and push us to consider pursuing a build out of the site that just doesn't hook up any fossil fuels. I'd love to keep talking about that with Ryan companies and with our clean energy advocacy partners. And I wholeheartedly share the point of view of the council president that I just think we should partner even more with the state of Minnesota. We're doing a tremendous thing right now as a city, and I think that it will be a model for the entire state and for communities around Minnesota. And I look forward to building out that partnership. So I'm just very excited about the point that we've come to, things that came up in the negotiations that haven't been as talked about that I would like to say I personally care about a lot are the deed restricted housing, affordable housing parcels. I think that's really important for permanent affordability over time, and it kind of locks in the land to be guaranteed affordable for generations, which is something that is a challenge across our city. Provisions like a look-back provision that help us share additional returns and really capture the benefits of the investment that we're making. And then there are some guardrails around if we run over costs or if there are cost savings, those costs won't come onto us. And if the savings are there, we actually recapture those too. So I just think that where we're at now is an even tighter agreement. I feel really good about all the work that's gone into it. I'll be supporting it, but wanted to just share my thanks to everyone who's said something and speak to that tonight. Thank you.
Commissioner Prince.
Yeah, as most of you know, I voted against the Ford Master Plan back in 2017 and expected that probably I would not be on board when it came forward ultimately. However, I have been really pleased with Ryan's work as master developer to adapt the plan to open up the green and open space, to save the Little League ball fields, and to work diligently with neighbors to earn their confidence. Most importantly to me, Ryan never flinched at this council's requirement that 20% of the 3,800 housing units be affordable, of which half are deeply affordable at 30% of area median income, through the creative partnership we've heard about with mission-driven nonprofit developers, Common Bond and Project for Pride in Living. That the developer never tried to shirk this requirement should set an example for every developer with whom we do business in the future. That if you want to work with the City of St. Paul, we expect you to join with us in meeting the needs of all the people who want to live and work here. This project gives us the moral authority to demand the best from the development community, that we are not going to become a city like San Francisco or Seattle, where people who want to work there can no longer afford to live. I do want to respond to the concerns raised by Ms. McGuire and Ms. Hunt. I come to the TIF part of this decision with far more trepidation. Today, we are agreeing to a 25-year period of development, not paying for taxes for the services that they will need. I am voting for TIF today because I believe we have negotiated a good deal with numerous protections built in, and one that, if Jenny Wolf has been as conservative as she can be, will exceed our expectations for revenue produced and the possibility of being paid off ahead of time. I also second Council President Brenmoen's call for us to be looking for state participation. Governor Walz was a strong proponent at the recent announcement, and I think that definitely on the housing piece and the job piece, we need them to be involved and reduce the city's liability. So as we enter into this TIF deal, I challenge all of us on this council. TIF comes at a very high price to the rest of the city and the neighborhoods I represent. And we need to be firm in our commitment that we owe our constituents the most responsible and careful use of their tax dollars. As we heard during the Truth and Taxation hearing, we need to double down on our commitment to do our best for the taxpayers of St. Paul. And thanks to you, Councilmember Tolbert, for your leadership on this.
Commissioner Tao.
Thank you. I want to thank Council Member Tolbert for his work and city staff and Ryan for come forward with this proposal. As one of the council member who led the effort to help put in 30% of the AMI at this site, and what we heard tonight over and over again, the shortage and importance of affordable housing that has such a tremendous ripple effect in other areas of members of our community's lives. I think it's important that we take action on those needs in our community, and this is one of the project that will set the bar high, not just for our city and for the metro area, but other parts of the country that are dealing with the same issue that we are here with the lack of affordable housing. And so I think it's when we are set with fear about TIF and borrowing against the future, I think we need to also understand that whether it's Ryan or XYZ company, the city's still responsible for those infrastructure to make this work. And so I'm excited about this project. We are also doing a similar project in Ward 1 with Atlantis, a private and public relationship, and I think this is a great opportunity with a massive affordable housing that we'll be doing here and the opportunity. I'm going to support this. I think that our imagination for good, what's good, and the potential of the city of St. Paul should overcome our fear of overburdening the community. And I think one of the things that we heard tonight was that as we progress going forward, the HRA and the city staff and the partnership will still come before the council so that we can continue to have oversight on this project. And so, I'm looking forward to this project.
Other comments? Okay. Well, I want to take the opportunity to thank everybody who came out today to testify and sat through the long hearing. Today is an important day, and it's another important decision point and milestone as we transition the Ford site from an auto manufacturing plant to something different. As everyone knows, this is a very unique site. It's on the banks of the Mississippi River. It's miles from downtown St. Paul, miles from downtown Minneapolis, and miles from the airport in the fabulous Highland Park neighborhood. But I was thinking back to a meeting that we had back in 2012 on the site, not long after I first took office. As people mentioned, the last Ford trucks rolled off the line in November of 2011, which ended nearly a century of union jobs that helped build the neighborhood that is now Highland Park and helped build the city, quite frankly. When we had that meeting, when Ford decided to end production at the auto manufacturing plant and leave a nearly 125-acre site in the middle of our neighborhood, we had a lot of uncertainty. This uncertain future was something similar to communities we're facing across the country as manufacturing plants close, Ford, GM, and other sites across the country as the auto manufacturing industry was devastated by the Great Recession. GM sought a bailout from the federal government, and President Obama appointed former Youngstown Mayor Jay Williams, known as the Car Czar, as the lead person to help the federal government's response to many of these plant closings across the country. I will note this plant was not part of that program, but Jay Williams was coming to Minnesota and we found out about it and we asked him for a meeting just to seek advice to help us navigate this uncertain future. At the Ford Training Center, which is now demolished, and the then closed 125-acre site, we sat in the former training room. It was former PD Director Cecile Bedore, former Principal Ford Planner Mayor Clapp Smith, Mike Hogan from Ford Companies, and a few others, and Jay Williams and I sat there. And we sat and just talked about the current situation. The plant had just closed. Ford was looking at site demolition, but they were not sure what they were going to do with it. We weren't even sure if they were going to clean up the site. We were not sure if they would sell it. We were not even sure if they just put up a fence around it and leave it vacant. There was so much uncertainty at that point. We had tried earlier, before I was on the council, we had tried to keep the plant open without success. We had created a Ford task force a few years prior. We had started studying the site for jobs, parks, and other ideas. We had started community visioning, and we had dedicated city staff to work on this project early on. And we had frequent and constant calls with Ford leadership, but we still didn't know what the future held. To my surprise, after telling this situation to Jay Williams, he actually complimented us. And he said that we were miles ahead of most communities that he visited across the country that were facing a similar situation of a former auto manufacturing plant. He said we were one of the few communities that was not in denial of the change that was coming upon us. And he said most communities just sat there hoping that something would save them. Whereas we started to engage in the community in 2008, we had a neighborhood task force, we stayed on top of Ford Motor Companies, and we dedicated this planning staff to start working on that complex change that was coming. He said to continue to engage the community, to develop a vision to lead the way for the future, rather than wait for the change to happen to us by outside forces. And that is the approach we continued. We convinced Ford to clean up the site to residential standards at their own cost, which is a higher standard than they were legally obligated to do, and they use zero government dollars. We've had over a decade of robust community engagement, resulting in a community vision for the future of the site that created the framework of variable goals around parks and open space, affordable housing, complete streets, sustainability, jobs, preserving the Highland ball fields, quality development and design, new housing options for all, and a seamless transition to the surrounding community. We also requested that Ford choose a developer that has a past and a future in St. Paul, a local developer that also has the capacity to do this large, complex site. And they did choose that when they chose Ryan Companies. Ryan Companies is a local developer with a good history of quality development, proactive community engagement, good labor relations, and with a past and a future in St. Paul. And Ryan embraced our bold vision and our bold goals. When it came to affordable housing, we had extremely ambitious goals that we wanted to hit, and we've hit those goals. 10% at 30% AMI, 5% at 50% AMI, and 5% at 60% AMI. With parks and open space, we exceeded the parkland dedication on this site, and we have more than doubled that with the additional privately maintained public space, and we also are keeping this important community asset of the Little League ball fields. In sustainability, we envisioned a 21st century community, one that incorporates sustainability through all aspects of the sites, and I'm proud that we've met that goal. In terms of infrastructure, the site will go from a former vast industrial space to a newly reconnected city grid with streets, sidewalks, over 5 miles of dedicated bike lanes, sewer, lighting, public infrastructure that will connect the surrounding community. In terms of jobs and economic development, this investment will increase our tax base for the entire city while creating union construction jobs and living wage jobs once fully developed. Ryan Company's project labor agreement is also further proof of their commitment to living wage jobs and quality labor relations. Today's vote is to accomplish our goals at the Ford site. It is to create the additional housing and especially desperately needed, deeply affordable housing. It's to provide jobs, parks, and open space. It is to develop a sustainable community, and is to reconnect our community. And this must be mentioned too. All public dollars will be going to public uses, and that's a principle that we've also had from the beginning. Succeeding on this vision we set for this site didn't happen overnight, and this development won't be created overnight. Creating this public-private partnership took many different people from many different departments in our city, and it took many different years and different administrations. And I'd like to thank some of the groups that were involved and some of the people that were involved. First, I want to thank the Ford Task Force that spent more than a decade worth of meetings in the neighborhood talking about this site. I want to thank the Highland District Council for their continued community engagement and numerous meetings that they've had regarding the redevelopment of the site. I want to thank the Highland Business Association, and I want to thank the thousands of neighbors who stayed engaged throughout decades of process. I want to thank my colleagues around this table, both that are sitting here today and also past colleagues who sat at this table too and helped invest in this vision for Ford. I want to take the opportunity to thank Mayor Carter, who came into office and embraced our vision, and he made this a top priority of his, both with his staff time and his own personal time. I also want to thank people from the mayor's office, Peter Leggett, Chris Ryder, Deputy Mayor Jamie Tincher. We had a lot of work with St. Paul Regional Water Services, particularly Brent Marcelik and Director Steve Schneider. Hero was involved, Dave Gorski and Director Tony Newborn. From the County Attorney's Office, Matt Slavin, Adam Niblick, Rachel Tierney, Eric Larson, Peter Warner, Jenny Bolton, and City Attorney Lindsay Olson. We had a lot of involvement in DSI, Tia Anderson, Yaya Diata, Wes Saunders Pierce, Steve Ubel, and Director Cervantes. From Public Works, Dave Keebler, Mike Klobuchar, Pat Murphy, Aaron Haas, Randy Newton, and Director Lantry. From Parks, Alice Messer, Ellen Stewart, Director Mike Hom. From PED, Mike Richardson. Housing staff, Sarah Zorn, Diane Norquist, Kayla Shuckman, Luis Pereira, Menica Mohan, the Principal Ford Planner, and Interim Director Kristen Guild. And we had a lot of work with the Office of Financial Services, Mike Solomon, Jenny Wolf, Director John McCarthy. I also want to thank Ryan Companies, Tony Bronco and Mike Ryan. Back to the city employees. I just listed current city employees. Those are the employees that touched on this project recently. Over the last decade, a lot of their predecessors touched on this project, and I'd like to highlight just a few of those people who touched on it. Libby Kantner, my former legislative aide, Donna Drummond, former planning director, former PD director Jonathan Sage Martinson, former PD director Cecile Bedore, former deputy mayor Paul Williams, former Ford principal planner Mara Clapp Smith, former deputy mayor Kristen Beckman, my predecessor, former councilmember Pat Harris. Particularly want to thank former Mayor Chris Coleman, who proactively shaped the vision and who challenged us and me personally to think boldly on this site. And I honestly do not think we would be at the place that we're at without his leadership and vision for the future of this site. And I also want to make sure to thank my current legislative aide, Melanie McMahon. I'm not sure where to start on all the stuff that she's been involved in on this, whether big or small. She has been a pivotal person at nearly every aspect of the site since she started in the Ward 3 office in 2017. And I'm personally grateful, and I think we're in a better place because of her great work and very close attention to all details on this site, and I'm grateful for that. So I know I missed a ton of people who touched on this site over the years, but I just wanted to take a moment to pause and recognize the work of so many different people, so many different departments, and so many different administrations that have touched on this project. And just to kind of close, you know, when Ford Motor Company opened a sprawling out manufacturing plant in our neighborhood on the banks of the Mississippi, they laid the foundation for a century of opportunity and growth in our city. I believe that today, and with this vote, we are embarking on another once-in-a-lifetime, once-in-a-century opportunity that will reap benefits to come. And I think we're ready to take that next step, and I move this item. So, should we roll call? Yeah, roll call.
Brenmoen?
Yes.
Busuri?
Yes.
Jolly Nelson?
Yes.
Naker?
Yes.
Prince?
Yes.
Tao?
Yes.
Chair Tolbert?
Yes.
7 in favor, no one opposed. The resolution is adopted.
Motion to adjourn the HRA from Commissioner Brenmoen. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We're adjourned.
And that's